Of the Maturity Project. I am the host, Chad Everett Broshears to some, to most, and Sir Chad Everett Broshears to others. Now, today's episode of the Maturity Project is about being a grown-up. This is actually not quite as popular at the moment, but I still hear it occasionally, and I think we've just worked it into our vernacular to the point where it's just common speak. And I'm not really a fan of it because for everything that we say has a block of value that we're trying to use as a description in life, right? So if I say, oh, I'm adulting today, well, what does that specifically mean? And for a lot of people, adulting is this effort that you put in to being at this position of an adult, this maintaining of adulthood. It's required to continue. So here's the thing about it, though. I look at all of the aspects when it comes to this about, oh, I've got an adult today, or I'm adulting. Here's the simple version. When you weren't adulting, what were you? Prior to becoming an adult, you had your parents leading the way. They were doing the job that you're currently making a odd little, I'd say often, passive complaint or a less substantive complaint. It's just kind of like, again, built into our vernacular to the point of just common speak. We don't really put a whole lot of value behind it directly with the cognitive recognition of what the hell we're saying. It's more of, it's kind of comical, it's cheeky, it's cute, but it comes with a specific set of data. When you say that, there's a certain thing that you think in your head. And the same thing goes for those in communication with you, and they verify what you're saying to perceive the world through the way that you communicate, so they understand what you're experiencing in this world. A simple version of it, right? That's why we communicate. It's just, there's a lot more to it, and you build a reality to the basis of the ability to communicate in a way that actually creates a specific and controllable outcome. That's why we would keep doing it. But as far as the adulting thing, I love that I adult. I adult often. I take great joy in it because when I'm doing my not just adulting, whenever I'm at play, I'm adult play, man. I'm having a great time. I don't need to ask my parents for permission to rent a jet ski or to, I'm going to go to Disney this weekend, which by the way, I'm not, but bad example actually, because it's got anchored values for me that really need to be satisfied in the way that I don't really want to support their business at the moment. Anyway, back to what's real though, is that maybe I want to go to, a theme park or something, or if I want to, take a trip and go out of the state for whatever reason, I don't have an adult that I need to tell that I'm going to go that would give me permission or not. So I don't need a parent. And that's what it means when people are complaining about adulting, is that that they don't want to do the responsibilities necessary, or it is the responsibilities necessary prior to playing. I think it's interesting the way that we just frame this stuff. It's the same thing. Again, if I needed to give it more of an example about, a block of data when you're talking about a specific term or terminology, it's also referred to in psychology as a heuristic. I'm sure there's other references as well, but with that is like using the colloquial slang of Karen. You're being a Karen. That's a specific data batch that you've just received that you don't need to think your way through. It's already, the moment has been framed through the lens of that statement. That's what I mean by a data batch. It's a specific amount of information that you perceive reality through based off of what was just said. Oh, I'm saying all of this because I'm working on the whole, you're the adult, this is the fundamental things to get to the point of understanding. If you're going around telling people, like for me, if you tell me, oh, I'm adulting, I'm like, you know what? It depends on the relationship that I have with you. That might be cute and cheeky, but it's very likely I'm going to look at it and say, I don't need that. I don't need to be in a world where I'm making that claim. No, that's not required for me. I'm going to do the adult version of myself for everything. I'm not going to turn it off because I want to take a break. I'm going to be the mature version of me. That I'm not complaining about being mature. That's also what that means, is the maturity required to maintain the adult status is adulting. right? That's part of it. And again, it's not 100% complaint, but it's often framed in a complaining way. And if it's used for humor, know that you're communicating something that you lack when you say that. Even if it's inside of the framing of humor, it still could say that, right? Like, you're not going to hear me say it because I don't have a problem doing it. I'm going to go off and do what I have to do. I'm going to pay my bills and fold my clothes or whatever, and make food, and all the things that people say that about. Go to work. For me, I also don't have any kind of like dread about going to work. I am learning in everything, even if it's not the most desirable experience at the moment. I'm learning from it because I refuse to settle in this life in any way that other than just gives me what I want in this life. And I'm getting what you want in this life is also simplistic in the sense that you need to understand what you want, and you need to get other people to comprehend what you're saying. So I am actually getting on the highway here, and it looks like there was a pretty decent accident, so I apologize about being derailed on the conversation piece, but I am... I hope that whomever it is that has traffic backed up this way, that they're okay. Who's ever involved. Okay. All right, back to it. So, adulting. The adults are here, man. You're it. But the thing is change the perspective. Being an adult is not in any way a bad thing. And you have that paradigm of thinking. You will be more successful in life if you let that go and be true to who you currently are. And if you're in the adult status, being an adult, do it. It's funny. It is absolutely hysterical to me that the point that we have people that they say things like, the adulting thing. Right? I don't want to adult today, whatever. Didn't all of us pretty much complain? I think there's a significant amount of us that have complained about, not growing up fast enough and not being given the responsibilities of an adult, and I'm not a child anymore, and all of this, and we go through this cycle where we're like, I just can't wait to grow up, and all of this, and then all of a sudden you get, I'm an adult now and I gotta complain about being an adult. No, man, your parents likely aren't gonna just send you off to go Costa Rica. You're gonna have to work for that. You have to put things in line. Now, there's some families that are affluent enough and they can do that and whatever, but the average person isn't going to do that. If you want to go, you've got to do it for yourself. But the same thing, think about it. If you have such a stressful element about being an adult, significantly stressful elements about being it, or variables about being an adult, that you got to complain about it, or that you don't realize the power and potency that you have, then there's typically a stress associated with that, meaning you don't have enough of a foundation to make being an adult desirable and fun. There's a playful element to being an adult. I love it. I'm very playful. I have a great time when I'm being playful. I really get such a wonderful opportunity that's in front of me every time that I decide to be responsible. And a lot of times that's what that means, is be responsible. Being an adult is responsible. Being responsible for life. Being responsible for whatever it is. So that's something to consider. If you don't like responsibilities, because you probably just aren't that mature in the area that the responsibility is frustrating you about. That's what my program, the Maturity Project, is about, is to help you start finding these places that make life less functional, makes life less orderly. I want to see everybody develop, and at their own pace. Look, I'm not going to get upset if my 2-year-old isn't able to do his taxes, or if my 2-year-old isn't able to hold a job down. I'm not going to be upset with him about that. It's not ready for it. If he doesn't have a philosophical conversation with me, I'm not going to be frustrated with him. He's 2 years old. I get it. So you see, the timeline thing is, that is a chronological value that we can all say, hey, I get that. I understand. But you also have the other side of it, which is, what about the 30-year-old that stopped growing when they were 8 in a particular area of emotion? Perhaps it's in the intimate relationships, and how at 8 years old, it was a friend of theirs that they kind of had a crush on, but they weren't at that age of understanding necessarily like sexuality and things like that. So they just kind of liked the person. And then they got shut down, and it hurt. It hurt pretty damn bad, you know. And then the next thing you know, they're just not even exploring that. They shut down every time. Let's make it a little bit more understandable and rational. Let's go to the person's 13 years old and they get their heart broken for the first time. But not only was it broken, it was shattered. It was shattered, glass added, you know, dirt, you know, napalm put into it. Just a horrible experience, right? Just the worst experience you possibly could get. Now, at that age, you felt like the world was over, and you said, you know what, I'm never going to get into a relationship that open again. I'm not going to unguard my heart. I'm not going to let somebody have access to it. They stop growing there. But it's not just have access to your heart. There's everything around access to your heart. That's behavioral values, the character traits that you are. There's a lot of stuff that's in there that you stop developing. And those are associated with other things that are skill sets and characteristics that we have. So our other traits, we stop developing in it. We leave it alone so that some of these traits can't get deep enough roots to really make character values that people can recognize. So we avoid it. So if that 13-year-old stopped, or they stopped at 13 and they're, 40 years old, there's something there. And for me, you can develop that. When you're aware of it, then you can start doing something about it. Now, to me, I also look at it this way. It's like brain injuries. The brain has an amazing and beautiful way of rerouting itself. Now, it does not mean that full capacity will be restored. It depends on the area of damage, things like that. But the brain has such an interesting way of compensating for the injury to make it less dysfunctional for survival, so it'll reroute. It's fascinating that it can do this. The neuroplasticity is a part of this, where it's rechanneling thought patterns and pathways. So as far as that goes, we have the ability. So I look at it like that. You have if you stop maturing at a certain age, you really can't go back to the absolute moment in any way, like time travel. But you can get to that to a significant degree by working on yourself and realizing where those areas of inefficiencies are and what you can do about developing them and taking on the different areas of maturity so that you can restructure and re-strategize the way that you think, which will affect the way that the world occurs to you. So if you look at it in the way that it's kind of like that, it doesn't mean you're going to have 100% of the capacity of somebody who didn't stop developing at that stage. But the beautiful thing about it is that we're all our own recipe. We're a unique recipe that if it had not been for specific life events, we would not have had Einstein. If it had not been for specific life events, we would not have had Elon Musk, Tony Robbins, Donald Trump. You name the person that is somebody as significant in this life, and if it were not for events that took place, we would not have those people. So if you decide that you don't want to take action because you settle into an answer to say, you know what, again, we'll use Donald Trump because he's aggravating people to some, and for others, he's a relief. For me personally, I'm a huge supporter. So with that, if you've inherited $500 million, well, that's a family legacy that my family didn't generate or create itself. And I'm not going to accept the fact that Donald Trump's family developed it and had it available for him to get so that, and his inheritance, he could build the empire that he created. I'm not going to sit back and be upset at that or to use that as a justification why I'm not going to work on building my own life in a way that maybe I can give that to my children and my grandchildren. I'm going to sit back and look at it and say, what is it that he's doing that truly makes him who he is? And how is it that I can learn from that person so that I can be more successful in my life as well? So I'm not going to get stuck in all the emotional hysteria around him. I don't do that with anybody. I study all kinds of people, even people of history, individuals that are alive now. Hell, I even study into the idea whenever there's a fictitious character. It's just looking at the motives and the behaviors and things like that. That's the stuff that interests me. And then how that affects me directly and how it affects me for the long run. So I'm not going to shut down because somebody else told me I should be upset about something. That's another thing. I'm a critical thinker. I think for myself. I am capable of doing that because I was given the privilege in my life to have to make decisions that made a difference in my life. And my parents were gracious enough to direct me, develop me, and then give me the right opportunities to have my own autonomy, to make my mistakes, and not really be there to bail me out much. Oh, let me deal with it. So I wasn't there to be bailed out financially all the time. I wasn't there to be bailed out emotionally all the time. I wasn't there to be bailed out in a business decision. There was all kinds of things. And I've made some pretty bad business decisions in my life, which created great lessons. I've owned multiple companies. By the way, it doesn't mean that they've all sold for a significant amount of money or anything. That's another conversation. But still, point of it is I've had multiple companies. I've learned from every one of them, and it's all culminating into where I am now. So if you want to have greater success in life, start looking at where you yourself have stopped developing in your life and realize you may be an adult to 75% of who you are as an adult. And there's 25% of you that's not quite mature enough to be leveled as that, or to be measured to that. Because when things happen in life and that person or that particular trait that you would rely on to be efficient or effective or proficient or highly successful, you can't really get there because you haven't developed it. But the other parts of you can, and you may even force conversations or events to try to replicate that area of strength, where you try to steer it into that. You've noticed this in conversations where people will have that with you, and they will start veering the conversation onto another subject without making a declaration or a real pivotal reason for it changing, as much as it seems like that's a preferred subject for them. Typically, it's our strength that we lean into in those situations. We do this to ourselves as well when we're trying to self-calculate over where we need to develop or where we would do best to develop, and then we distract ourselves into our strength to avoid the weakness because the weakness is uncomfortable. I don't really like this. This is the average move for most people. Now, for me, I find a weakness. I get aggressive like hell and excited. That's something I can change in myself, and I can affect other people by that change in a way that everybody gets a better opportunity in life. That's the lens that I look through. Everything about this life and that I have is how can I improve everyone else's life? I work diligently to develop myself to be that person. Now, I have my sins. We all do. But the goal is to develop in a way that we have learned from those and we can guide others in a way that reduces the damage and impact, and also the possibility of them getting left astray or lost, even worse, whenever something happens and no one's there to help guide them. Now, shutting down that area and refusing to visit it again, that disables you. It's your call. You're the adult. Do what you need to do in order to be the adult in every area. If you catch yourself wanting to go into I've got an adult today, revisit that thought. It'll do you well. I do it all the time. Mine's mostly when somebody else says something about adulting. I'm not sitting there beating them with my brow and, thinking the world of less of them or anything like that. I look at them and say to myself, that might be an 18-year-old that I see in front of me, although they have the body of a 40-something-year-old or a 20-something or a 30-something. That person just stopped developing at 18 in this particular subject or this particular trait that's necessary to be successful here. Same thing, lies, but that's a deeper conversation. People lie for various reasons, but a lot of that is because at some point in time they've also shut down their growth and what the benefits of being honest and a person of integrity is, because they didn't really have the development. That's what I call developing, you've developed in a feral way. Feral being not civilized, if you will, but yeah, we're still in the midst of civility, right? And suburbia for some of us, cities for others, but still we're in a society that we consider to be advanced because of our education systems and the access that we have to information. That really doesn't really change too much because people are still immature. Again, it's not a bad thing to be immature. It's just the same as ignorance. It's just innocence. But it can be developed. It can be harmful, or it can be something that you develop and grow. The goal is to try to prevent it from being harmful, and then to see how you can grow. But if it's harmful, there's a lesson, and I would not offset the outcome of that lesson. I'd work my ass off to understand the impact of my sin that has caused somebody else such harm. So, all right, that's it for today. Again, this is Chad with the Maturity Project. This is number, 28 now? 29? Yeah, you're the adult, man. Let's do this. So, with it, please use this video if you want to start a conversation with somebody in a way that might actually get something moving forward for you. You open up some doorways. Share the video with people in your life. It's a great way of doing it. Like it, comment in the comment section. Let's Let's get after it, man. We got a life to change. We got a world to change. But we can't do it if we don't change ourselves. We got to work on us. So, and then we'll get to the rest of the world, okay? All right. I take that in as a statement because that is exactly how I live my life. So, and I hope that that is comes across as sincere as possible, because really is the way I am. I want the best for everybody. So, with that being said, thank you so much for your time. And comment in the comment section, like the channel, subscribe to it, share the video. Again, my name is Chad Everett Broshears, Sir Chad Everett Broshears to some, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.